Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. So, in the last part, we have completed up to step number 221, and we have tested our Windows 11 CL systems live vMotion. Now, let's move on to the next step. Now, in this particular part, we will be doing some major things like we will be first creating our new ESX host cluster so that our ESX hosts are in functionalities for HA and DRS. So to make your ESX host available for the HA and DRS functionalities, you need to cluster them first. So we will create a new cluster first. After that, we will add our DRS and HA functionalities for those ESX hosts up within that cluster, and next is we will test our HA, that is high availability, for Windows 11 CL virtual machine. What we are going to do is we are deliberately putting off our virtual machine our ESX host while the virtual machine is still running. So if the primary host is down for a particular virtual machine, that virtual machine should restart and getting hosted to another available online host. This is what a HA concept is. Okay, so we will test all those functionalities in this part. So let's move on to the practical step. So the step number 222 is through VMware's vCenter Web Console, ESX Lab Data Center, right click and say new cluster. So I am coming back here to my DC system. This is my vCenter server console. Okay, and these are the two hosts which are already added to this data center what we have created earlier. Now I will right click on this data center and I will say new cluster. Okay, so the first step is we are clustering now our two ESX hosts. Next is select options as follows. So what all options we need to give? VSphere DRS and VSphere HA. So these services we need to enable, but before that we will give a particular name for this cluster, ESX hosts underscore cluster. Fine. ESX host underscore cluster, and then we need to enable these two options, vSphere DRS and vSphere HA. Now let me explain you. I have just explained what is HA. Let me explain you a DRS. DRS means a distributed resource scheduling. That means if any of the compute resource like CPU usage or memory usage or even your storage usage is getting overloaded for a particular virtual machine, then those computing resources can be availed from any available free resource pool, that is your any other ESX host RAM or ESX host memory or ESX host storage or ESX host CPU usage. Okay, so this is a distributed resource scheduling. Okay, so we are enabling both the options over here for DRS and HA, and I will say next. We don't need to enable the option manage all hosts in the cluster with a single image. We don't require that image option over here. Okay, so we are not giving any image setup as such, and I will say next. Again it is saying base image must be selected to proceed or something. The cluster image can be further customized later. I will say next. Let's see why it is not going. I will go back here. So this option, yes, this option we need to deselect, manage all hosts. Okay, so this we have not done, that's why it was asking for the image and all. So I will deselect this one as stated over here. We don't require this single image option as of now. Now I will say next. Okay, so we have already said next. Next is we need to review the ESX cluster options and click finish. So we have reviewed all the options. DRS is enabled, HA is enabled, vSAN is disabled, and vSAN ESA is disabled, and image option is disabled. Cluster configuration management is also disabled. So as of now, we have configured our cluster. I will say finish. So you can see over here, this is kind of a logical entity. So it has put in our both ESX hosts into a single cluster. Okay, why this cluster is required? Because some common services can be distributed or can be shared within those two hosts. Okay, simple as that. Okay, like HA, like DRS. So next, now since we have created a cluster, we need to add our host onto that cluster. So right click on newly created cluster and click add host. So I will right click, because if I'm expanding this, nothing is going on. These two hosts are still not added into this cluster. We have just created one logical entity. Okay, now we need to add both the ESX hosts into this cluster. So I will right click on it and I will say add host. Okay, next. So next is on add hosts window, select existing host, that is two of our host, and select both ESX hosts and click next. So what I will do is I will say existing host, I will select both of them and I will say next. So this is fine, these warnings are fine. This host has one powered off VM, this is fine, and this host has one powered off VM, so this is fine. As of now both the nested VMs are off, that's fine. We'll see. On host summary, click next. So I will say next. So on review window, click finish. So we have now almost ready to add our both ESX hosts in a cluster. So I will say finish. And now you can see our both VMs, sorry, both ESX hosts are added in our ESX host cluster. Okay. So next is verify that the both ESX hosts are added in our newly created cluster. So that we have already verified. You can see over here the cluster details are there. If I'm just making it as a use one. Okay, so both ESX hosts are added in our cluster. Since it has been added just now, it will just verify all the connectivities and all these things. Okay, so I will refresh this one. Let's go back to our PPT. So coming back to our PPT, after adding both the ESX hosts into our cluster, it should look like this. And now you can see that our ESX host cluster, under our ESX host cluster, both the ESX hosts are added and showing as connected. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. Once the ESX host cluster is connected, we need to make sure that our both the services are turned on, that is your HA VSphere HA turn on and TRS is turned on. Okay, so let's say cluster configure options as below. So we need to VSphere availability VSphere HA is turned on. Let's see whether it is showing is. If it is not showing, we will need to enable it. Okay. So on our cluster, we need to configure two main services, or we need to verify two new main services in order to achieve our HA and DRS functionalities. So what are those services? So once you click on ESX host cluster, we need to click on configure, and the first one is vSphere DRS. So vSphere DRS is turned on, and second one is vSphere availability. So vSphere HA high availability is turned on, and you can see over here in the case of failure conditions and responses, in the case of host failure, the response will be your VM on that particular host will restart and it will auto migrate to another host. Okay, so if I am making it like this, restart VMs using VM restart priority ordering. Okay, so this particular option, vSphere HA is turned on, is important. The response will be restart VMs. Okay, so I'm coming back to the PPT. So this option we have seen, services vSphere availability, vSphere HA is turned on, and in case of host failure, it will restart our VM. Okay. Now next we need to verify is vSphere DRS, and we need to configure the option as fully automated. So vSphere DRS automation fully automated. So let's see whether it is showing that. If not, we will configure it. So vSphere DRS and DRS automation is fully automated. Okay, so both the options we have already enabled, and now it is already been configured up to the expected level. So let's move on. Now we will test our HA functionality. So through vCenter Web Console, power on Win11 our VM, Win11CL VM, if not already running. So our Win11CL is already running. I have already taken the RDP of it. Okay. So next is through vCenter Web Console. Now right click on ESX host 02 and power, and then shut down. Okay, so we are deliberately shutting down our ESX host 02, which is hosting our Windows 11 CL VM, and which is already in on state. So I will right click on it. I'll click on power. I will say shut down. Okay. Now the reason I will just put in as HA test. Okay. So you can see in our PPT also, this will be our next step. So on shutdown host window, enter the reason comment as HA test and click OK. So I will say OK. And now our ESX host 02 is getting shut down. Now you can see the ESX host 02 is showing the red mark, and both the resources hosting on this particular host got disappeared because this host itself got shut down. Let's come back to our VMware console also, and you can see over here this ESX host is off now. Okay, now let's see what happened to our Windows 11 CL but before that we will go back to our PPT. So verify that our Windows 11 VM restarted automatically. So I will go back here and I will come on ESX host 01, and you can see now ESX host 01 is hosting my Windows 11 CL and it is powered on, although it has been restarted. Okay, it has been restarted and it has been auto migrated to my ESX host 01. Okay, so this is how you can test your HA. So now our HA is successful. Previously our Windows 11 CL was hosting on ESX host 02. Now we have put off deliberately. Now it is getting hosted on ESX host 01. Okay, if I am clicking on ESX host 01, it is showing the virtual machines Windows 11 CL also and my VMware Center server also. But remember, to hold both the VMs, this particular ESX host 01 should have enough computing power. That means it should have enough CPU and enough RAM to host both the VMs. Okay, I hope I'm clear with this point. Let's move on to the next step. So verify that the Windows 11 VM is up and running and hosted by ESX host 01 now. So that we have already verified. Okay, now you can see over here Windows 11 CL. It is, although it is restarted, but now it is up. I have not changed anything over here. I have not disconnected my RDP session also, but still it is running. Okay, I hope I am clear. I hope I am clear. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. So next step is we need to power on the ESX host 02 again through VMware Workstation. So I will go back to my main console and I will start my ESX host 02 also one more time. So now our ESX host 02 is back online again. So let's move on to our next step. And just for the load balancing, repeat the steps from 215 to 221, that is your live migration or live vMotion, to get back our Windows 11 CL machine to its original host, ESX host 02. So what I'm doing is I'm going back to my vCenter console. You can see now this host is again back online. What I will do, I will right click on this VM. I will say migrate, change compute resource only. Then I will select ESX host 02 one more time. Next, VM network is fine. Schedule the vMotion on high priority. Next, and now it is ready to again vMotion back to our original ESX host 02 host. So once I'm clicking finish, I will immediately go here. Before clicking finish, let's see, I will just ping start pinging my domain controller in the background. Okay, now come back here and now click on finish, and you can see over here it started to ping. Okay, and now let's go back to our vCenter server and let's see whether our VM has been migrated or not. So ESX host 02 VMs, and yes, you can see it has been migrated back to ESX host 02. So this is how we have completed our vMotion and HA test, both the tests. Okay.